Welcome to the Scottish Property Podcast. This is a show where we aim to educate, inspire and entertain through real life stories and interviews from people in the Scottish property community.
As always, thanks for listening, and give us a follow on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember to join us at our monthly networking events on the first Wednesday of every month. Tickets are available on our website. So without further ado, we'll just cut straight into this week's podcast. Welcome back to this month's market update. It's just the two of us, Stephen, and it's the 1st of April, a monumentous occasion for Scottish landlords. What's happening?
The time has arrived.
The end of the rent cap legislation. So obviously for all you listeners that follow us, we've been talking about this for, that must be about 2 years now. The emergency legislation was in place to protect renters, protect tenants from the scumbag landlords increasing the rents.
Can't evict tenants and we can't put our rents up.
So that comes to an end, and from today, this podcast will be going out, and landlords have the right to propose any increase they want to their rents. But there is a caveat to that, Stephen. Obviously, it's been well publicised across all social media channels. Have you seen the Facebook ads popping up from the Scottish Government?
I didn't, and someone sent one to me. Like, they're putting a whole lot of marketing behind this, aren't they?
There is a lot of publicity about this. So tenants have the right to ask for a review of a rent increase, and you'll see this plastered all over billboards, bus stops, Facebook ads. So obviously, when a landlord goes in with a 25% rent increase or £200 or something like that, then obviously the tenants have the right to contest that. So they have kind of made that put that mechanism in place where if a tenant feels that it's not that it's not justified or they can't manage it, then they can
challenge it.
They can challenge that, and it goes to a adjudication process.
Is it a rent control officer then in each individual council?
No, so it's a main Scottish Government centralised, it's in effect housing tribunal.
So what will they know about the rent, the market value rent in a property in Brecon and Angus?
Well, who knows where they pull the data from? That'll be interesting, but I think they're going to be totally overwhelmed. But I mean, obviously as a letting agent, we've been working on this for a while and consulting with our landlords to obviously see what people want. I've got to say, most people are remaining pretty sensible about it, because if it does get challenged, then there is going to be a cap of 12%, right? That's the maximum you're going to get. Most landlords have been coming back saying, look, somewhere around about probably 10% would be 8 to 10%.
But what happens if you're one of those landlords that for the last couple of years you've not been able to raise the rent? You were already on low market value rent. Rents have increased 30% last year, and now you're mega below, and you could change it up £300 and it would be almost market value rent. What would you say to those landlords?
Well, exactly. You've got two options. You either try, you hit and hope the tenant doesn't challenge it to get it up, at least break even, or else you sell. Two options. But
you can never do an eviction, can you?
You can do an eviction,
but you can't do it based on market value rent.
But throughout the legislation, you could always serve a notice, and you could always go through the eviction process. And most tenants were actually leaving when you served a notice,
right?
But the protection was you couldn't enforce the eviction. Through a housing tribunal.
Now you can.
Now that can be passed on to sheriff officers.
That's interesting. And I've been having these conversations with our letting agents to see what they're proposing, and every single person's looking at it from a different view. And I like what you said as well there, that you could, if you are well below market value, you could try it, and if they choose to leave, fine. If they don't know about the challenging the rent, they might just accept it, or they might leave.
I don't think it's about pulling the wool over anyone's eyes. I mean, obviously we don't want to be, we want to be fair as landlords as well, but like you say, some people are literally in the position where their fixed term mortgages have come to an end. I have a property that went from £550 a month up to £950 a month. It's now literally breaking even. I need to make that decision now. Is it worth it actually holding on to that? Now, for me, it's probably worth, because it's a high value property, and with the new interest rates it's not really working, I probably will sell that and I'll buy something that does work.
That makes sense.
But it's interesting, the feedback that we've been getting, because like throughout the, when obviously the pandemic hit, we had the whole COVID thing, there was a lot of goodwill from landlords. A lot of, we'll give them a reduction, tenants were asking for rent breaks, and landlords were like, well, okay, we can work with the tenant and all the rest of it. It's almost like all that goodwill is gone now.
But not even gone, it's almost biting you back in the ass, because we've, over the portfolio we reviewed for this coming in place today, we've probably got about a handful of properties that we've had that same situation. A couple of them have inherited from portfolios that we've purchased, but they've been given big discount from the landlord because they were struggling in COVID times. Then next minute you're slapped with this rent freeze where you couldn't put the rent up anyway, and now you're getting put in place for stringent measurements on how much you can increase it by. So there's a few that we're probably a few £100 below market value rent, and then like you said, when we've fixed those mortgage over the last 6 months, the interest rates have been the highest they've been in the last 12 years. So some of them aren't working exactly what you'd like them to cash flow.
And the thing is, we've obviously put it out and been working with our landlords to see what they want, and out of like 150 landlords or something like that, everyone's wanting to take an increase to rent because they have to.
Yes.
And that is a way. You need to look at it from a business point of view, and also there's fear there as well, because the way the government are going about things at the moment, you just don't know what they're going to do next. So there is an absolute uncertainty, and what comes with uncertainty is, markets don't like uncertainty, and the property market's the same as any other market.
I think this time will be the way the industry will change from the 1st April 2024. This will be the standard, I think, going forward, that landlords will put up their rent, but the whole private renter sector, tenants, customers, clients, whatever you want to call them, they will expect a rent rise every year on the button, whether it be 3%, 2%, 10%. I think it will just become the standard.
Well, we'll certainly be advising clients that anyway as a letting agent. But, that moves us on to the new housing bill that was announced. We're recording this on Thursday, 28th of March. So this was announced Wednesday, the 27th of March, which has been introduced to the Scottish Parliament. So the government has announced and they've published their housing bill to progress plans originally set out in its New Deal for Tenants Consultation 2021. The bill is proposed legislation which, if approved by MSPs, will become an Act of Parliament. So this is all around protection for tenants. The government try to drive through their policies for trying to reduce homelessness, which this is not reducing homelessness. This is not the answer, basically. But they're trying to do something. Again, it's all to win the votes, isn't it? And this is Patrick Harvey, our pal Patrick, who hasn't responded to any of our interview requests. But I haven't actually tried, but I think you did reach out to him a few times. This
bill is not about 70 pages long, so give us a bit of an overview. What's the main points from it?
I mean, number one thing to say is this has been coming for a while. Obviously, we've known about this. This has been out for consultation, so the public have had an opportunity, and landlords have had an opportunity to contribute to this. And it's all about trying to make things fairer for the tenant, which, there is certain things that do kind of make sense. I mean, you're a pet lover, a dog lover, should tenants have more flexibility to keep pets? That's one of the things. Another thing is redecoration, like a tenant.
Basically allow them to make it their home.
Make it their home, so rights to increase the personalisation of the property. Now, the things those are all kind of things that don't really concern me as an investor, as a landlord, right? Because ultimately I want my tenants to be happy. Yeah. If I need to take
if they're happy and settled, then they're going to stay longer. It's going to be a win-win for both parties.
If I need to take an extra deposit to cover any damage for a pet, then so be it. By the way, rabbits, I would advise against rabbits. Like I could not believe the amount of damage caused by a rabbit recently on property.
Chewing on the skirt?
Chewed through the carpet, the stink, it pissed all over the place. I chewed through the skirting as well, chewed everything, basically. They can eat.
That's their teeth.
That's their teeth. A bit like myself. Anyway, so the thing that does concern me is the changes to long-term rent controls. By the way, this legislation's got to go through Parliament. So this is a bill that gets introduced to Parliament. They have to vote on it. They have to debate it.
So they're not just forcing this one through?
No, exactly. So this is not an emergency one. This has definitely got to be debated, and it could be 2 years away before this actually becomes legislation.
But we know it's coming. We know they're going to get something through.
Well, I mean, let's see what happens. But the one we're talking about here that kind of does frighten me a wee bit is the rent controls and the long-term rent controls. So what they're proposing is that, how in between tenancies, when a tenant leaves, we can up the rent and we have been able to up the rent even through the emergency legislation to whatever the market will demand, to the market rent, or whatever we want, then they're proposing that they're going to control that and cap that and give the local authorities, so each council is going to have the power to review what the market rent is in that area, and there's going to be some sort of formula or a percentage whereby even for new tenancies it's going to be restricted. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's quite worrying, isn't it? What the formula is, that's going to vary area to area.
And I think it deters you from investing in the property as well.
Yeah.
Why are you going to pump loads of money into bringing that up to you? Because you know yourself, you can have two identical properties in the same area, and you can probably get, if you do a good refurb on it,
£200 a month more.
Couple £100,
Yeah.
and if you stage it nicely, furnish it.
Aye, that's my first thing that comes to my mind, as well as what's the incentive to have good accommodation if you can't be rewarded for it.
Exactly, and there's a market there for good quality accommodation. People will pay a premium, and there's decent wages.
And there's a market for people that can't afford it and they want the lower end.
And that problem for the lower end is not really our problem. That is the government's problem,
to provide more social housing,
and they need to build more social housing to sort that. This is where it becomes. Naturally, what's happened is these tenants who are struggling in benefits, who are, all this legislation is basically put in place to protect the vulnerable tenants, which I totally agree with, but that's not our place to provide that sort of housing.
No, it's not, and the majority of our tenants won't be those tenants.
Yeah, but they have crossed into the private rented sector because of the destruction of social housing.
Yeah, there's not enough stock.
30 years anyway. So that is definitely one to watch. The other one is more protection for tenants during an eviction process. So there's talk of, if you lose your job, for example, and it goes to a tribunal, the tribunal could say, well, we need to be sympathetic here because somebody's lost their job, so we'll delay the eviction, we'll give them more time and all the rest of it. Now, again, that's not the landlord's fault.
That's not the landlord's fault. Yeah, what happens if they've done something to lose a job?
Exactly. So who's paying the mortgage in the meantime, where the tenants stop paying, they're in rent arrears, and now the eviction process has got that bit longer.
It's an opportunity for the entitled country to become more entitled. I just got my rent. You were debating with me that online actually when I posted up my email from the letting agent claiming back my deposit for the tenant who was evicted. Took me 3 years to get them out through the sheriff court officer. Then I think the 4.5.
You didn't need to enforce that, right? Because they'd left. Did they leave?
No. I had to force them. They were enforced. They removed them, changed the locks that day. So there was a cost to that. There was a cost to the service to get done. There was a cost to get all their crap removed because they waited until the sheriff's officer kicked them out that day. So their stuff, they took their TV and their couch. That was it. So it cost me £600 to get somebody in to go and clear the whole place out with all their belongings. Cleaning was a few £100, even though it was a fucking shit tip as well. And then they come back and claiming their £600 of their rent, their deposit, but they're still on £4.5 in rent arrears. And I couldn't believe that they've got the audacity to fucking ask for it. But even the fucking letting agent had the audacity to even send me that email, like, do your fucking job. And you come to the letting agent's defence and was like, oh, but all fairness to the letting agent, they're doing their job. No, doing their fucking job would be actually having a bit of common sense to go, they're £4.5 in arrears. Look at the shit tip they left it. This took years to get them evicted from the property. No, you're not getting your deposit back. Like, here's the evidence.
Common sense prevails, right? And obviously, I'd be going to the landlord and say, look, I advise you not to obviously accept this. But I think...
But in that situation, would you even put it to the landlord? Would you not just say, I've objected to them claiming back the deposit of, obviously, I'll let you know the update on what happens.
Depends what sort of relationship you've got with the landlord, whether you've got that kind of long-term relationship where they're just letting you get on with it. But some landlords want to have the control of everything, and that's where I advise the staff, always give them the option. Right. So always communicate what the options are. So that's why I jumped to defence. Mate, it's a simple act. You just need to reply back one line.
But what
don't take it.
No, but you know that this is the whole point of being a property investor and scaling up a property business. Is as an investor, not a landlord, I want to scale my property portfolio to hundreds of properties, and I'm employing the services of a management agency. If the management agency comes to me with every single thing like that, I might as well just employ my own staff.
Well, There's need no to have point that in me conversation with your agent needs to, because the scale of portfolio
I'm the most. This is one agency from that's only got a couple of properties, right. But I'm the most relaxed landlord on their books. Do what the fuck you need to do. Do your job and let me know the situation. Don't give me a problem. Just give me the solution and tell me when it's done.
Now that's good.
Like,
that's the sort of client that I would like, right? But I've
so everyone listening out that want to be one of the next clients, be like that. Let them do their job.
So we've got a landlord that has like 30 properties, right? And we have that relationship. They don't want to hear from us every day about a new property that's gone on the market and what different applications they've had from all the different tenants and the ins and outs. They don't want to make that decision. They've entrusted us with the property to make that decision. But equally, we have landlords that are single property owners that want to know about absolutely everything, and they want to decide who goes in the property, what they do, what deposit they get back, all the rest of it. So I can see it from both sides. I can see it from the investor's point of view, but I can see it also from the letting agent point of view. Anyway,
fuck, there's the rant.
The letting agent
started already.
This getting absolutely slated.
Do you want me to name them?
The last bit of the bill that you need to be aware of is the ending of joint tenancies. So if you share a flat with a partner, you know, it's a joint tenancy, you enter a joint PRT tenancy, then basically if you want to end that, if you want to leave, then you need to get your partner or mate to agree to that ending that tenancy at the moment, right? Which seems pretty unfair, because if you are going through a breakup or something like that and the other partner's not playing ball, then you're fucked. You're still liable for that rent.
That concerns me with the HMO properties, because if you're putting them on PRTs and you've got 3 or 4 students and one wants to leave, like, that's got to be an agreement that they end the tenancy. So that concerns me, that one. Yeah,
and then they can just leave.
Yeah.
That one tenant can just leave.
Yeah.
And then
there's a void of £500 a month from the rent. Yeah.
So then who steps in? Do you say to the tenants, right, well, you need to be like getting somebody else here? You know, they're not then liable for the full rent. So whereas you let say you've got a 4-bedroom HMO, you rent it out as one lease, don't you? Don't do it room by room.
Yeah, one lease. So one lease. They all pay £500 a month each. It's £2,000 a month that it brings in for me. But like you say, if one or two
tenant leaves, that ends the tenancy. So then you need to either say to them, right, you need to find somebody else, or you need to renegotiate another new lease with those 3 that are left.
Yeah, that concerns me.
So something to look out for, and I think that's pretty much it. There's loads of other stuff. If you're really into all this stuff, go and read the 70 pages on the Scottish Government website.
Or Nick will just keep updating us on the market update every month as he gets through it,
and we'll see how this plays out in Parliament. Right.
Interestingly, Sam was on a call for discussing that bill a few weeks ago. They've done Zoom calls with, like, I think it was about 8 or 9 landlords in Scotland, and it was quite nice that I listened to the call. It was quite nice that they were actually taking the points from landlords and actually putting it out there to get feedback. I don't know if it listens or it falls in deaf ears, but
talking about taking points from landlords, and this is something that came up, a news article I was very interested in, because although it's like seems like old Patrick Harvey and the Green Party really pushing this tenants' rights stuff, and he is the Minister for Tenants' Rights, but there is maybe a wee ally that we've got in the Scottish Government, and that is Hamza Youssef himself, the First Minister, the leader of our country. His wife is actually a registered landlord in Dundee, so they've got one property in Dundee. And the way this news story came about,
I thought it was more. I thought it was
no. So they've got one property that they've declared. So this news article basically, Youssef challenged over not declaring parents' rental homes, right? So he's declared his wife's property in Dundee. And because as part of when you go into Parliament and all that, you have to declare all these interests and businesses and what else you have going on in the background. But what he didn't declare was his family's portfolio in Glasgow, which is worth over £1 million.
Yeah, so 1.3 million, isn't it?
So they've got, I think they've got 7 properties in Glasgow. So I don't know, it's reading between the lines, it's probably like... Is
there a way of publicly looking at what they've got, what interests they've got?
Well, what they did was the Herald did an investigation, so I think they looked into landlord registration and took I think they're registered through the family's accountancy firm, which is Youssef and Co Limited. So I think what they've done is they've tracked back and seen what properties are registered against that company, and they've like tracked like the letting agent and all that, and they actually got as far in the investigation to see that they actually applied for an eviction, I think, or rent arrears through the tribunal during COVID as well. So I mean, obviously, like, he might not be directly involved, maybe it's his dad or something like that, because it was done through the accountancy firm.
Let's see if we can get his family on board.
So we need to get his old man, Hamza's old boy needs to come on the podcast and talk about £1.3 million portfolio
in Glasgow,
which obviously the First Minister's going to inherit one day.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm thinking. Is he really all for these? Deep down, does he really want landlords to get shafted? If he's got a £1 million property portfolio coming to him?
It'd be interesting to see what other politicians actually have property portfolio, because surely there must be a few that have got some.
There's quite a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not so much in the SNP, but down in England, well, the Tories, there'll be loads of landlords.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was quite good, and maybe like he can fly the flag one day once he inherits his portfolio.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. But again, it's all kind of like, we look at it on the political side of things and we think, well, landlords are such a small minority of the voting population.
Who cares?
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. They're going to go with the majority to try and get the votes. So moving on to our next article. Right, let's have a wee chat about house prices. So I think I sent you the latest Zoopla data, which shows the UK wide.
The UK wide had a drop. Depending on which one you looked at, Zoopla had a different one, and Rightmove, they were all round about the 1 to 2% drop throughout the UK. But interestingly enough, Scotland is outperforming again.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, Zoopla's predicting a pretty much flatlining of the market this year, right? Which across, again, these are averages across the whole of the UK.
You took the wind out of my sails. You're meant to say how much Scotland went up.
No, well, Scotland has. That's what I was going to say. And what it says in the Rightmove report is that Scotland are actually propping up prices. Otherwise it would be a far more significant price drop. I think the last stats here, Scotland's up about 4%.
4.8% on the ONS, yeah.
And I totally get where you come from for selling your Aberdeen stock, because Aberdeen City, if I bring up the Scottish House Price Index, which is the actual registered house prices, which obviously lags, but 5.2% up in the city of Aberdeen.
We've bottomed out.
You by the way, see if you look at those stats across Scotland, that's one of the highest increases. So starting to get a wee bit of capital growth up in Aberdeen.
Claw back the last 30% that's dropped over the last few years.
Well, remember 6 months ago that was like -6.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like negative for ages. So I don't know if that's just been like,
I don't know how much I believe the data as well, and obviously it's very much micro focused. Like, you'd have to go and look at the property types, the areas, locations,
and that's just City Aberdeen as well. So I don't know what postcodes that takes in. But what is your reason for selling up there anyway?
Selling?
Yeah, you're selling quite a few, are you not?
Not just to de-risk the portfolio a little bit, deleverage, get off some bridging loan, clear some private investor finance off, yeah.
And see, when you're selling those like one bedrooms, like they look alright. I mean, they're not grunters.
They're decent enough stock, and when you look at the actual yield they produce something between 11 and 13% yield, so they're a good return on investor, even paying almost market value for them.
And would you be targeting investor landlords, or will that be first time buyers, or?
When I go to sell eventually in Aberdeen, you'd want to try and target first time buyers, or people wanting to step on the property ladder.
But whilst you're restructuring the portfolio, it's going to be
just going to hold them.
Aye. Right, and
wait until we keep going month again and having these big increases in Aberdeen.
Have you been speaking to any flippers out there in your circle? Selling on properties, getting good prices?
Aye, there's the flats are going to be sticky. They're going to struggle at the moment, especially with they're getting picked up by investors, and there's been a lot of down valuations happening recently as well from surveyors. So that's not shown much growth at the moment. But there's a couple, Lou and Hannah, that have just flipped a 3-bed house near where you did one. It went on the market. I don't know if it's sold yet, but yeah, there's. I think the house market's really buoyant.
Whereabouts was that?
That's in, just on the west end of Aberdeen.
Right.
So the house market's buoyant.
What about anywhere else? Anything happening near you, Dunfermline or anything like that? Anybody doing any flip deals?
Yeah, I picked up one last week.
Nice.
In Errol, between Perth and Dundee.
So we're going to see that one starting soon?
Yeah, maybe in Homes Under the Hammer as well. I'll feature it.
Brilliant. Is that going to be a big project for you?
Aye, yeah, it'll be quite a meaty project. You know, I love doing flips. I enjoy my flips, yeah.
Like, you've not really done a flip.
I've done one since November, since I sold that last one. So it's been quite. I usually try and do a few a year anyway.
It was interesting listening to your chat back on the Perth property. Is it Premier Properties? The couple. I missed that one, but it was interesting. They're trying to get into a few more flips as well. They said they enjoy that side of things as well. So
the market's still buoyant, and it's still and it's certain house types that's really buoyant.
Yeah. So that kind of brings us on to the kind of market and what the actual general mortgage market and stuff's doing. And obviously, when we talk about the mortgage market, that all filters down from the headline inflation rate. So latest figures are that inflation's really been coming down quite rapidly.
Dropped significantly last month, didn't it?
Aye, so we're down from, it was 4%, we're now down to 3.4% for the inflation figure. That was the latest stats, and obviously that then has an effect. Well, then the Bank of England base rate decision takes place based on those figures, and they've decided to hold it still again for like fifth or sixth time in a row. It's getting a bit boring, this stuff now, because I used to get excited with it when these figures came out. Yeah,
I think it makes sense, but I think we're probably going to see a drop in the next one maybe.
Yeah, so it just depends though, because like it depends who you listen to again, what economist and that you listen to. But I like listening to Adam Lawrence. He knows his shit, and he always talks about I think his channel's Proponomics or something like that. He's got a YouTube channel, and I love listening to his analysis. And he did say that he thinks he doesn't think it's a done deal, and it's just as clear as getting back to 2% for the target inflation. He thinks that it's going to be a lot harder than that, and this story ain't over yet. And all these people that are talking about, interest rates coming back down in June, for example, back down to like 4% or something like that. Not sure.
Nah, I'm dubious as well.
There's a lot of shit happening in the world. You see that? That container ship that went into the bridge there. Even things like that have a knock-on impact on the global economy. Because that port is going to be closed. That's going to be closed down now, I think, for a while. So yeah, looking at a wee mortgage article that I picked out. This is an interesting one. There's a new £5,000 deposit mortgage introduced for first-time buyers, and you can get a loan of up to £500,000, 500,000.
Well, first-time buyer buying a £500,000 house
for £5,000. Right, it's all based on affordability, of course. Yeah. So you need to have a 4.5 times your salary multiplier.
So what salary you need to be on to afford that? £495,000 mortgage on a what? 5%.
So
we're doing this calculation live. So
if you wanted to get a £500,000 loan, well,
so you've got a 495 loan if you're getting a £5,000 deposit on it. So 495. What's 5% of that?
495 times 5%, 24
grand a year.
No. You need. Listen,
we're going to have to cut that out.
Where's the mortgage broker when you need them? Anyway, what I'm saying about this new deal is you can get a fixed rate of 5.99%.
You're right. It's 24 grand a year, 25 grand a year.
For what?
For the payments and the mortgage. So that'd be £2,000 a month.
You cannot get a £500,000 mortgage.
So you'd have to have what's usually 4.5 times your salary to justify the affordability. So you have to have a salary of almost 9.5 grand to afford that as a first time buyer.
9.5 grand a month.
Aye.
That sounds a bit more right. Aye, you're talking about a salary of about 100 grand a year or something like that.
Fucking first time buyer's got 100 grand a year salary.
No, I know, but that's the maximum. Obviously, they have to have a maximum loan value, right? A loan limit. But this is interesting because you can get a loan of 100 grand or 75 grand. Do you know what I mean? Like, why this is interesting? Because we get a lot of young people reaching out. Okay, they want to be property investors. If you had your time again back in your early 20s and something like this came available, that's pretty accessible.
Oh, absolutely.
5 grand. You could take out a student loan. Right, we do not give financial advice on this podcast.
Yeah, I used strategies like this when I first started at that age. Yeah, right. If you're getting an opportunity to get 5% deposit paid for you on a loan, take it. Jump on the market, and then that could be your first time buyer strategy where you flip that property over a period of time. You're paying no 6% ADS and you're not paying no capital gains tax at the back end. So there's a good opportunity.
Exactly. As long as that's your main residence, obviously, you can't use this sort of funding if you're just flipping properties. You can't do that.
If that's your main residence, of course.
If you're a young guy, mate, and you don't have any family, and so all you need here is a job. Say, like, I mean, the people I've just employed somebody at 23 grand, right, for a lettings negotiator, a lettings administrator, no experience necessary, right? The guy's 22, right? It's first proper job. So, you know, you can get 4.5 times that 22 grand a year as the loan, right? So you're looking at properties around about 100 grand.
Yeah.
Buy something that you can add value to. Take out not a student loan. Take out a loan. Like, there's various different ways of doing it. You know, credit cards, etc. Again, we don't advise this.
Yeah.
But if you can increase the value, sell that. Do the work yourself at the weekends
with your friends. Yeah, guys you know in the trade.
You're living there. How long does it take you to put in a kitchen? Do you know what I mean? 3 days or something like that over the weekend, right? Plug away at it over a year. Sell it. You could make 20
30 grand,
20 to 30 grand. Do that over the space between your 20s and 30s. Do that, say 5-6 times. You've built up a significant pot.
Huge pot, yeah.
To start playing at property, like, you know, investing property in a bigger scale and start compounding.
Absolutely. I love that strategy. Yeah.
So you should be teaching that, mate, in your course.
Funny enough, I do.
You do.
Funny enough, I do indeed.
Right. So that's a mortgage product accessible for the first time buyer. And moving on to another wee article here. Are more landlords selling up? So this is the big question, isn't it? And this was interesting listening to the Radio Scotland drive time yesterday. Patrick Harvey came on the radio talking about this latest housing bill, and he was asked the question about, are all these landlords selling up, exiting the market? And he said, well, no, actually, evidence suggests that we actually have 5,000 more registered landlords on the Scottish landlord registration. So that was his argument. I don't see it that way, and there's other data to suggest that landlords are selling up.
No, I actually, funny enough, I got an email yesterday as one of the reminders, your landlord registration for a certain council area is up for renewal. I've sold the property in that area.
Aye.
That one's not getting renewed.
Yeah.
But how long does it take for these to come through? Okay, that one, I think it was the 24th of June it was up for renewal, so I was notified now. But what happens if I've just sold and I've not got, that renewal's not up for another 2 or 3 years away? The last 3 years, don't they?
3 years.
3 years, aye. So just say I'd renewed that, sold the property, I've got another 2 years left on that, I wouldn't have updated that. So I don't think this data is going to show through for 2 or 3 years before you really get a true indication of the data, because the people wouldn't have renewed their licence.
Yeah, and also a lot of people who are now doing limited companies, so they might have a personal name landlord registration, and then they've started buying limited companies.
Yeah.
So now they've actually got
increases the landlord, but they're the same landlord.
It's one landlord, but they've now got 2 registrations.
But what I mean, we condone this quite a lot in the Scottish community as well, where you're JVing and you're partnering with other people. Like, I've got my own personal name in a different area, and then I've got a limited company with my own properties, and I've got a property portfolio with Sam. So, you've got multiple companies that you buy property through, but that technically it's the one landlord. I am the one landlord, but have multiple landlord registrations.
This article comes from the NRLA.
But you were screaming at that radio station yesterday when you listened to Patrick Harvey.
Oh, mate, honestly, it makes my blood boil.
Was it making you angry?
It's just the way he talked. And do you know what the funniest thing was? In the interview, he started blaming the UK government because the interviewer was like, well, how can you be helping this crisis? Because, like, basically Glasgow City Council, Edinburgh City Council, Argyll and Bute, they've all declared these housing emergencies. Yeah. Right, so the guy was like, how are you sorting this out? And they're like, well, the reason why we've had to make budget cuts to the investment in a social housing programme, because they've cut that by like a third in terms of house building for new build social housing. And he was asked that question. He's like, yeah, that's because the funding that we get from the UK government, we've not been getting the funding. And he keeps on going on about, in real terms, our funding has not kept up with inflation, right? Which might be the case. I'm not arguing that, but he's talking about like, in real terms, we've taken a cut and it's not keeping up with inflation. But on the other side of things, he's expecting landlords to not take any increase on rents and not keep up with inflation and take the hit. Yeah. So, like, do you know what I mean? It's like totally, he's talking shite basically, and trying to blame somebody else when it's actually their failings. So the NRLA looked through data from the Housing Tribunal for the eviction cases, right? So they analysed all the eviction cases from the 1st of December 2023 through to 29th of February 2024 to understand why landlords sought possession of the property. So these cases, when you apply for an eviction, you have to give a ground. Now that could be that, you know, tenants and rent arrears, or else ground one is actually that the landlord intends to sell the property. So this is how they're getting the data for the number of landlords selling the property. And they're saying that nearly 50% of landlords who seek possession in Scotland now do so because they intend to sell. And I'm finding that as well. We've lost quite a few through, again, it's just single landlords, you know, that have got one property.
Finally been able to exit the industry, yeah.
And they're like, this isn't worth it anymore.
Yeah.
You know. But, again, this is all very negative. Let's spin a positive on it, right? It still works.
Well, who's buying it? I know the ones that bought mine recently that's another investor that's going to tar it up and put it back on the rental market, and it's going to suit their portfolio.
And as much as we've got people selling, we've also got probably more people that are still buying and adding to their portfolios.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it makes sense as an investment. Property still makes sense. And if you're getting a 10% return on your money, where else are you really getting that? And it's leveraged.
Yeah, it makes sense at scale, I think, now. I think it is these changes, you know, the threats of the housing bill coming in, you know, they're just, it's changing that demographics of the industry to make it corporates that own the property and gets rid of the kind of personal name a landlord with one or two properties. I think that's the way it's continuing to grow.
So did you hear this one about there's been no criminal reports in Edinburgh after the introduction of the short-term let crackdown?
That's surprising.
Aye, so basically this legislation came in October. We covered it quite a lot in the podcast, where you have to apply for a license now. You have to have a license to operate an Airbnb or a short-term let across Scotland. And, you know, how many people have actually got the license, you know, and are still operating? So this is what's happening in Edinburgh. They've had 70 complaints. So it says the Evening News revealed that there have been 70 complaints about unlicensed short-term lets made to the local authority since the rules came into force. However, only 5 warning letters have been sent to landlords involved.
We knew they were going to be overwhelmed, and we had someone uncovering this as it was getting brought in. I'm sure he gave us the statistics in Edinburgh. It was not 12,500 or 13,000 properties that were on Airbnb in Edinburgh, and only a few hundred had actually applied for the licence the week running up to it. So we know that the majority have not applied for licences, and you've only got 70 complaints. So the
bottom line is, councils are broke. They're stretched to limit. They don't have the resources, and they've been given this to deal with. They're like, put that to the bottom of the pile. Plus, it's actually going to damage them as a local authority and a local economy.
It's going to damage the economy, yeah.
So there's probably a kind of internal part thinking, well, we actually still need these places to attract visitors. So it's not really any surprise that it's not really been... I mean, the only other thing they could use it for is a revenue generator.
I'm surprised about they didn't make an example of someone to try and enforce it or try and drive it home. I thought they would have tried to do it to someone to get in the news, to get in the media.
Well, I was thinking, well, are they missing a trick here? Because it's obviously a revenue generator for them as well. But is it really, they need to allocate the resources, and they're obviously clearly not coping with it.
Nah.
With 70 complaints, only 5 letters. So that's on the short-term lets. We'll be interested to see how that pans. We've actually been taking on a few short lets lately back onto the long-term market because of the licensing. So I think that has increased the supply a little bit in the private renting sector. And lastly, just a wee kind of, not a funny one, but quite a kind of an interesting one here. Estate agent accidentally burns down a £1.5 million house while preparing for a viewing. A real estate agency in Australia has been ordered to pay more than £438,000 in damages after a negotiator working for the company accidentally burnt a property to the ground just minutes before an open house inspection. Julie Bundick was preparing for an open house at a 4-bedroom house in Sydney, and she noticed the current renters had left bedding on the deck to dry, so obviously it was a bit of an eyesore. She removed the sheets and threw them in the downstairs room into a shelf near a light, which then she switched on. She left the property, left the light on, and the house burnt to the ground. What an absolute disaster. So then I got myself thinking, geez, because I'm a letting agent and I'm always in and out of properties and all that, I'm like that, straight to my insurance policy. Are we covered for this sort of stuff? Like, this could happen.
Could happen, aye.
You know what I mean? So
things that happen when you're rushing about and you're in and out of properties, yeah.
Exactly. So make sure, so the moral of the story is, make sure you've got all your insurances in place.
Make sure you're covered right, yeah.
You're protected, because anything can happen in property.
Yep, absolutely.
And we'll round that up there. Anything else you want to add? Oh, by the way, talking about news, I was watching your Instagram feed yesterday and it came up with a video and there was a big announcement to be made, and I got me hooked, and there was a countdown timer and all sorts, and I was like, big announcement at 4 o'clock. I was like, yes, got on there. And then I was like, another fucking sales pitch for another fucking course. I was like, what?
My countdown was so Stevie to have the video ready for me.
I was like, surely he's going to announce that he's buying another 30-bed HMO or something like that. But no, it's, anyway, give you the opportunity to plug.
No, just, one of the biggest things, the objections that people say about getting involved in property is, when they start looking, and we provide this free resource in the Scottish Property Podcast, but it's hard to go and spend any great deal of time going into depth and into details and explaining what they are. So biggest objection is, but it's a couple of grand, it's quite expensive. And I thought, I'll get rid of that objection, I'll bring it down to a beginner's one for fucking 97 quid. It's under 100 quid. Like, it takes away that big objection. You can actually see if property's for you, listen to what the strategies are, like, just know a bit of an overview, a bit of basic couple of days, show what the strategies are, show what's possible in property, and kind of open people's eyes. So that's why I actually... Did you come up with the name, Steve? I don't know. I can't remember. But someone came up with the name The Awakening for it, and I thought it was quite a fitting one, because people think that... I always think that people look at property investors as, that's not for me. I don't have the money. I don't have this. I don't have that. But everyone's got a unique skill set, resource. They have the ability, and property investment, I believe, can be attainable for anyone. So I thought, take away that point of entry, make it so cheap that your excuses are fucking null and void. You can come along. I'm going to do one in Edinburgh and go to one in Glasgow as well. So, I can't come to Edinburgh, I can't come to Glasgow. They're fucking there. They're in the main cities in Scotland. So, yeah, looking forward to it. You know that I'm not a big education fan, but if I was to go on a property course, mate, I'd be coming on yours and paying the money. Pay you £97.
Does it end with 7?
Yeah. I went with it.
Right, basically, guys,
I don't know what the reason is, but I went with it.
There will be an upsell at this as well. You'll see Stevie Scott at the back of the room with the credit card machine as well.
Go and pay me.
So all the best to you, mate.
Cheers, mate.
I'm sure it'll be great value. So and thanks for listening, guys. As always, give us a follow on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and book a ticket for our next networking event, which is this week,
this coming Wednesday. Yeah. See you guys there.
Speak to you soon. Cheers.